I'm Jeanette Pincus, and this is Thursday, March 21st, 2024, and I have the opportunity to interview Nancy Ritter, whose mom was one of the famous kosher caterers that we had when everyone had their bar mitzvahs and weddings and special occasions in Dallas. So, Nancy, thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
With us. And I'd like to begin with, I want to talk about your mom, Naomi Sherp, who was the caterer.
Yeah, good.
So first you can tell us a little bit about her background.
Okay. My mother was born in Sioux City, Iowa. And when she was 16, she came down here with her sister. And her parents moved here. And she began working at various places and went to Forest Avenue High School, like all the other Jews in town. And she was working at a restaurant. And my father happened to come in, and he took a liking to her, and they got married, and they opened Mike's Barbecue downtown. And my mother worked there during lunch hour, and she was always there to pick us up from school, however. So, we benefited from that, from having our mother home with us. But then my mother started catering barbecue and ribs and everything that my dad had. And then she became just a caterer at large, doing everything from corporate business to, all Jewish kind of affairs and many other, businesses and house parties, things like that. And then she just, blossomed from there. And then, sadly, she passed away in 1989, and I took over the business. And I've been doing it ever since. And I just recently retired.
Okay, yourself. So when your mom was doing the catering, where was she doing the cooking, and how was it? I know, it was at, the Orthodox, the conservative synagogues, and things like that. How was she doing it so that it was kosher?
Well, she did all the kosher catering at those facilities. Teferet, Sheriff, and Temple was not kosher, so she did a lot of catering there. So she did not have a kosher kitchen per se, and we didn't keep kosher at home. But when she was at the various places that do keep kosher, she adhered to the rules there, which I do too.
And you mentioned, do you think any challenges that she had with doing the catering and things like that? Like, it was mostly, you were telling me she did it more to the synagogues and things like that to be kosher. Did she do anything outside, like at the hotels, anything, connections with that?
Yes. I mean, she did a lot of corporate catering, a lot of corporate clients. Mary Kay was one of her favorite clients, as was mine as well. And she did E-Systems and, all kinds of corporate venues.
How many years would you say, when she started and continued on doing this?
She started really catering when I went to college in 1965. So that's when she started. And then I went to school, whatever. And then when I came back, after I got divorced in 1974, I didn't take over the business, but my mother used to schlep me on parties, so I would learn the business, which I had no intention of going into, but, to humor her, I went along with her, blah, blah, blah. But eventually, of course, I did take over the business when she passed away in 1989.
So I would say every weekend. She was probably pretty busy.
Every weekend.
Doing this.
Yes. She was very busy, and she had a wonderful reputation with the Jewish people as well as the other Gentile people and other people that she did other things for, the corporate community, which was very nice. And I got all those clients as well. They were happy with her, so they just had faith in me, and I enjoy that very much. Both aspects, the Jewish and the
So she
corporate.
started in 64. How many years would you say she did this?
Let's see. She did it in 65, so 65 to 89. 35 and
Okay.
19 years.
That's wonderful. And then you took it over.
But I took it over.
And when you do kosher events, what kitchens were you using in order for it to be kosher?
At Sheriff, I would cook there. At Tiferet, I would cook there. And at Anshe Torah, I would cook there. And also at the Chabad on Park. I did some things
Okay,
there.
and that's the one located in Plano.
Not
And-
very much, but a few things, yeah.
Okay. And how many years were you doing this?
Well, 89 to when the pandemic hit, I decided, I think it's time for me to give it up too, which is fine. I do some things every once in a while for special people. But
Did you find, as you know, with your mom and then doing till now, is there any like challenges or changes that you noticed in the Dallas Jewish community as you were doing catering? Like, were wants different? How about people were requesting? And I guess with the community, I guess got more diverse too with how people were keeping kosher and things like that. What were you finding?
Well, you know, being kosher is different to many people. Some people are kosher strictly all the way at their home and when they go out, and others, you know, cheat a little here and there, whatever. Maybe don't keep it when they go out. So that's really what I found that was interesting about that. And also, all the shuls had different rules. Sheriff Israel, like for instance, you couldn't bring in, the cheese had to be kosher. At Anshe Torah, it did not. I don't know if they've changed that, but so it was a little confusing, and that used to bother me because I thought it was a little hypocritical. So, you know, the shuls I thought should all be the same.
Did you find, like, finding the products and things like that, were they locally? Were you having to ship them in? How were you getting?
Both.
Okay. And over the years, I guess, was it getting easier, I would think, or not?
Yeah. I mean, it was about the same.
Okay.
But, you know, everything's different now. I mean, you know, so if I were doing it now, I'm sure it would be harder to get stuff. Or, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be.
I mentioned, you know, we mentioned before about there was a very limited, you know, who you could get as kosher caterers and things like that. That's why I was mentioning that your mom was probably never having a weekend off because there was constantly, which was a blessing, that we were everyone was having simchas and things like that, and she was busy with that. How would you say? I'm sure she enjoyed everything that she was doing, but did you see anything that she mentioned, what she felt was changes going on in the community, or how things were with the business?
No, my mother was a very outgoing person. She made friends with many of her clients, as I have, and it wasn't difficult for her. I mean, and it was just a joy to do it, and I feel the same way. I enjoyed all my years of catering, and she did as well. It was just, you know, just a wonderful livelihood.
What would we say were the favorites that people would request?
Oh, God. Well, her kugel was pretty good. We're known for our tuna fish. As a matter of fact, one of my daughter's friends, I always used to have the tuna fish when I came home from a party and left over, and I always pass it out. And she said, "Oh, I want the catering tuna." That's what she calls it. Anyway, so it just things like that. The usual typical bar mitzvah luncheon. But I did other things. Like beef tenderloin and fancy desserts and all that kind of stuff. And the big thing we used to do was halava with chocolate coming out of it. Yeah. Well, hadn't done that in many years, but that was a fun thing at bar mitzvahs.
That does sound like a fun thing. Is there anyone that is anything like really comes to mind that was like a special one that you got to do?
Well, I was just thinking about this the other day. I had done a wedding. It's sad for a couple that the husband was terminally ill, but they got married anyway, and it was a very bittersweet event. So that was sticking out to me in my mind. But I made so many friends, and it's so gratifying to help people and make them happy and do what they wanted. So that's what it was like for me and for my mother.
Mm-hmm. When we think about traditions of us in the Jewish community, food is what our wonderful remembrances with our families and the holidays.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's our meals.
You got to have all the stuff. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share that's coming to mind as we're talking about your mom and you and doing this, being in the business, the kosher catering business?
Well, I guess her schlepping me around paid off a little bit. Although I have to say the first job I did by myself, I was a little panic-stricken. But I got with the program pretty fast. But no, we both enjoyed it very much, and that's made a lot of friends. It was just gratifying.
Well, I want
hard work.
Yeah,
it's really hard work. People don't realize how difficult it's. Sometimes it's just as easy to cook for 200 than it is for 20 people. So, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you so much taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
To share this with us, because this is just a special, y'all have been a very special part of the Jewish community of sharing your wonderful recipes and meals, and I personally have been one of the recipients at my own bat mitzvah with your mom.
Right.
So thank you so much.
You
I
are
appreciate
so welcome.
Nancy. Thank you.
It's really